With the shutdown of 3G in Singapore, there is a need for keypad phones that support 4G and voice over LTE. Unfortunately, in Singapore, we don't get a lot of good options. Compared to, say, Australia, the telcos in Singapore are not stocking any keypad phones that are guaranteed compatible with their own networks. And HMD, who are the primary producers of keypad phones nowadays, has no official presence in Singapore. Although there are some grey imports, voice over LTE is not a plug-and-play standard, thus making it slightly dicey to purchase. So, if you're looking for a keypad phone that's available locally with warranty, the best choice seems to be those made by a local brand called Y2K. They have two models, a standard candy bar phone and a slightly more expensive flip phone, which is the one I'm reviewing here today. It comes in black, blue, white, gold, and red. And here are the main specs on screen for reference. Here's the box itself. Notice how Y2K is using the same font as the Singapore Airlines logo? The inbox contents are much more generous than many phones nowadays. Everything is wrapped in a layer of plastic. You get a one-piece charger with a USB-C port, a cheap-feeling earpiece that constitutes little more than e-waste, and a fairly fleshed-out manual without obvious spelling or grammatical errors. Last but not least, you also have the removable battery. Don't forget to peel off the sticker on the battery contacts before insertion. On the front, you have the 1.8-inch sub-display with dedicated call keys, plus the notification LED, torchlight, and camera. Unfortunately, the sub-display functionality is quite limited. You can only check the time or date, receive calls, or turn on the torchlight using the dedicated keys on the right. Speaking of which, the torchlight's placement is poor. If you turn it on when the phone is closed, it might accidentally blind you. And it can't be used as a camera flash, shockingly enough. The left side has a 3.5mm jack and USB-C port, which is a pleasant surprise. But it can only charge through USB-A to USB-C cables. C to C cables do not work. It does support a connection to the PC, however, both as USB mesh storage and, surprisingly, as an internet modem. Flip open the phone and you have a 2.4-inch QVGA screen with average viewing angles. Build quality is rather average and it feels behind what old Nokia used to produce or even what HMD is producing nowadays. The keypad in particular feels kind of cheap and creaky. The back has a dedicated SOS button and loudspeaker. The SOS button is an important USP for this phone, given how it is targeted at the elderly demographic. Once configured, long pressing the SOS button will activate a siren for 5 seconds before dialing and texting up to 9 predefined numbers. Removing the back cover, you have access to the dual SIM cards and microSD card slot. I do recommend getting at least a microSD card since there's only 35MB of storage out of the box. While the phone supports dual 4G SIMs in dual standby configuration, the SIM card slots are of the mini SIM kind, which means that you probably will have to fiddle with SIM adapters if you are using a nano SIM currently. The home screen will be familiar to those who have used dumb phones before, especially Nokia's own. Besides the 3 dedicated shortcut keys, the D-pad and soft keys also serve as shortcuts too. Pressing and holding the hash key toggles between silence, meeting, and normal profiles. Unfortunately, the main menu only shows one app at a time. I do wish there was an option to show multiple apps in a grid or list. Also, some of the UI dialog and options are unpolished or confusing. For instance, the confirmation dialog box follows those used by PCs, which makes no sense on a keypad phone. Couldn't they simply place the options at the bottom corners of the screen? Users will then intuitively link them to the soft keys. I know this sounds like nitpicking, but given the target audience of senior citizens, shouldn't the phone be made to be easy to use as possible? The phone is also quite slow in waking up from sleep. It takes at least a second to respond to flipping up and the pressing of buttons, when most other feature phones can do it instantly. It's easy to take calls and SMSs for granted nowadays, but given how texting and calling is critical to this phone's target audience, the experience cannot be overlooked. By default, The phone will blurt out phone numbers digit by digit when entering phone numbers, receiving calls, and going through the phone book. Calls can be received through the cover screen, and if the incoming number isn't already registered in the phone book, it will be highlighted as a potential scam. Flipping up answers phone calls, and flipping down hangs up phone calls as well. When answering the phone, there's even an option to record calls. Ringtones are not the most polished, but they are loud enough. The MIDI engine actually sounds better than HMD's own phones. Messaging works just as well as you might expect, and predictive text is quite accurate. However, I do wish that SMSs were grouped together by context in a single thread, which HMD is already implementing on their dumb phones. Last but not least, you have the dedicated SOS button and functionality that I discussed earlier. Camera-wise, the UI is not too different from feature phones of old, and the capture time is decently fast. You do get quite a few manual controls as well, and even some picture frames and effects as a bonus. And that's all the faint praise I have for the camera. Y2K clearly chipped out on it. It's a VGA sensor extrapolating to 2 megapixel output by default. The images and videos are borderline useless even after tweaking with the manual settings in the most optimal light conditions. And it only gets worse from here, even when compared to other VGA phone cameras. For instance, here's an image of a plant in moderately low light shot without night mode on the iPhone 13 Pro. And here's the same plant on the Nokia 110, a 2012 entry-level feature phone also with a VGA camera. And this is what the Y2K can produce. Complete darkness! There are also a few pet peeves I have outside image quality. You can't use a torchlight as a camera flash, which I mentioned previously, and you can't even use the sub-display as a viewfinder. The latter would be useful when taking selfies, and even a 20 years old flip phone can do this. In short, I'll just say that the camera on the Y2K phone is merely a bonus rather than an asset. There's an FM radio that works without an antenna, and the reception is pretty strong. It also supports recording from the radio too. The music player is surprisingly well featured. It supports equalizers and even can channel audio through true wireless earbuds. There's also a well-flashed file manager as well. While the phone has internet browser, it is close to useless. It can only handle basic HTML formatting, which means you have to navigate down all the hidden options until you get to the main content for most web pages. And it cannot open even some basic and common websites like Wikipedia, simply throwing a not enough memory error. Otherwise, you might see an error saying, page is too large, can't open. Finally, within tools, you have a calendar, a calculator, alarm clock, and Bluetooth settings. Unfortunately, there are no pre-installed games and Java apps cannot be side-loaded. Overall, the Y2K 4G Senior Flip phone does the job as advertised, but hardly anymore. Even HMD's own offerings are slightly more polished. However, HMD's offerings are not clearly ahead in terms of fundamental functionality. And not forgetting again that they aren't certified and available officially in Singapore, which poses risk over warranty and having voice over LTE support. Although there are some weird quirks and shortcomings here and there, in this day and age, having an elderly-friendly keypad phone is still essential as an option in an aging society like Singapore. And not forgetting its potential as a phone for young kids or those who want a full smartphone detox. I will give it 3 stars out of 5, with the missing 2 stars being attributed to the average build quality, borderline unusable camera, and slightly undercooked software. Thanks for staying tuned to the end of this video. I also have a part 2 where I will demonstrate the ringtones, wallpapers, and do a full walkthrough of the phone itself. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my videos. It helps me very much as a small-time VTuber in technology. And do follow my Twitter and Twitch as well. The links are in the description below. Thank you, and I'll see you soon in the next video.